A very good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you again on this Wednesday, the 3rd of March, as this week we look into the theme of light, and this morning very particularly into the theme of light and darkness, as found in the Gospel of John. And in John's prologue to his Gospel, where he's talking about the Logos, we get to verses 4 and 5, and we read that in him, that is in the Logos, in the Lord Jesus, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. We looked at that yesterday. But then he goes on in verse 5, and he says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not. And then some versions, some translations talk about the darkness has not understood it, or the darkness has not overcome it. Darkness has neither understood nor overcome the light that the life of Jesus brings to mankind. Now, both darkness and light are, in a sense, powerless. They simply refer to the state of our hearts and minds. And darkness and light influence our ability to make reasonable choices. We get a nearer look into that when you consider what the Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Corinth in his second letter, chapter 4 and verse 4, where he says that the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers. Those who do not believe find that they are in darkness, blinded. They cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. They cannot see it because they're in darkness. And while darkness is powerless, being in darkness doesn't allow them to be able to respond to make the right choices. He says, however, John says, however, in verse 5, that darkness cannot overcome the light. It's true both in the physical realm as well as in the spiritual realm. You know all too well that you cannot go into a well-lit room and switch on darkness. What you can do is you can switch off the source of light. You can remove light, because that's all that darkness is a removal of the light. But you cannot switch on darkness. Darkness cannot overcome the light. And no matter how weak or flickering that light may be, the darkness cannot overwhelm it, cannot dispel. The darkness itself cannot quench the light. I must admit that as a parent, I find that very encouraging, and I know that there are many of you who would have children who in their early days would have known the gospel, maybe even responded to the gospel, yet as they've got older, they've become hardened to the gospel, and they appear to want little or even nothing to do with the gospel these days. I'm encouraged by this verse to know that the darkness cannot overcome the light. And no matter how flickering that light may be today, it once burned brightly. And although it is weak at the moment, yet the darkness cannot overcome the light. And that, let me be honest, gives me hope for my own children. But this verse 5 could also be translated to mean the darkness does not understand the light. The darkness does not understand the light. And that's because the person with a darkened heart somehow cannot see sense in what we call the good news. It makes so much sense to us. But no matter how simple we try to make the presentation, it would often seem as if it's talking gibberish to the person who is in the dark, with a darkened heart, cannot understand the gospel. But there is always the hope. And the hope is that the God who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shone in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. And God, who spoke light into creation, has spoken into our hearts. Why could he not do the same for others? And that is my expectation, that God would do the same. That is my longing. And this morning, as you take time out, won't you take some minutes to pray for for the Lord to shine his light into the lives, into the hearts of people who you know are darkened, blinded, cannot see the light. But know this, that the darkness cannot overwhelm, cannot overcome the light. But pray that somehow the light would shine brighter in the hearts of those who are currently blinded. Please take off time to do that this morning. We'll chat some more tomorrow.